Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. What happened after one woman laughed and left the party with another man was nothing anyone could have predicted. It wasn't the kiss that ruined everything. It was the way she laughed right after. There was music, yes, that buzzing DJ noise pulsing through the rooftop like it had something to prove. But I still heard her. Through the crowd, through the noise, that laugh I knew too well. That high-pitched, careless giggle she used to let out when she burned toast or dropped keys between the couch cushions. Only this time, it didn't sound cute. It sounded final. She tilted her head back, that wine glass barely in her hand, and let it out as she leaned into a man I'd never seen before. Tan blazer. No tie. The kind of guy who probably says things like, "Let's just see where the night goes." No one saw me. Not really. I was behind a pillar near the catering table, chewing the same dry shrimp skewer I hadn't tasted in 5 minutes. I didn't blink. I didn't speak. I just stared at her like I was watching someone else's wife destroy someone else's life. But no, that was my wife. 10 minutes before that, she told her friend, loudly like she wanted to be overheard, "I'm over it, Steph. I'm not going back to that quiet house. Tonight, I'm finally free. Like our marriage was a sentence she'd just served. They didn't sneak out. They strutted, like they were performing. Rowena slipped her hand into his, and just before they stepped into the elevator, she looked back, not at me, at her friend. She grinned and mouthed, "Watch this." And that was it. I didn't go after her, didn't text, didn't call. I just stood there until the room turned back into lights and movement, until the voices returned, until a server asked if I was okay. And I mumbled something about the bathroom. But the story, the part that matters, didn't happen on that rooftop. It happened the next morning, when I walked into the kitchen and found her standing barefoot by the sink, still in the same dress, mascara smudged down both cheeks, and clutching something in her hand. Not her phone, not her purse, my wedding ring. She didn't notice me right away. The kitchen lights were off, but the early morning sun spilled through the blinds, casting narrow bars of light across her face. Her dress, the same one she wore to the party, hung from her shoulders like it was tired of being worn. Her heels were gone, feet bare on the cold tile. She was clutching my wedding ring so tightly her knuckles had gone white. For a moment, I said nothing. I watched her breathe, slow, trembling, and I thought, maybe this is the part where she breaks down and apologizes. Maybe this is the part where the story turns back into something salvageable. Maybe this is the part where she cries and says it was a mistake. But then she looked at me, and nothing about her face said sorry. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask what I saw. She didn't explain why she left with another man. She just said, in this almost whisper, "I came back, didn't I?" I stared at her. "That's what you want to open with?" "I didn't sleep with him," she added quickly, like that would somehow cleanse everything that came before. "We just talked, drove around. I needed space. You wouldn't understand, I said, because I didn't trust myself to say anything else. My voice felt like it had been locked in a box overnight and was only now crawling out. Rowena set the ring on the counter like it was a piece of trash she finally decided to discard. "I didn't expect you to be here this early," she muttered. "I thought I'd have more time." More time for what? To sneak out again? To leave a note and vanish? To come up with a story that made her the hero? I walked past her and opened the fridge. Not because I was hungry, I was anything but because I needed something normal to anchor me. She stood there, waiting. For what? I don't know. Forgiveness? A fight? For me to fall apart? But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I closed the fridge, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "Tell me why you laughed." Her lip quivered, just slightly. And then she sat down. For the first time, she looked like someone who had lost control of a plan that had been years in the making. And what she said next wasn't a confession. It was a challenge. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she dragged a chair back with a slow scrape across the tile and sat at the edge like the kitchen might collapse beneath her. For a second, I thought she might cry. She didn't. Instead, she did that thing she always did when she was uncomfortable. Pinched the bridge of her nose like she was solving a hard math problem. Only now, the only problem in the room was her. "I laughed," she finally said, Because it was the first time in years I didn't feel like someone's wife. I felt like me, I blinked. So you laughed because I was gone? No, she replied too fast. Because I forgot what it felt like to be seen. Not as half of something, but as a whole person. I should have been furious. Maybe I was. But what I felt, deeper than anger, was humiliation. I remembered the faces at that party. The way some people turned away when I asked where she'd gone. They knew, or at least suspected. That laugh, the one she just justified, was her way of throwing me under the spotlight and walking off stage. I gave you space, I said, my voice cracking. I never controlled you. You took trips alone, you went out with friends, I never asked questions. And that's the problem, she cut in, eyes flashing. You never asked questions, Milton. You just existed next to me. You were safe, predictable. Like background music I forgot was even playing. That one hit me like a punch. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I wasn't expecting an apology, but I didn't think I'd be compared to elevator music either. Then she leaned forward and added something that made my skin go cold. I didn't come back for you. I stood still. She continued. I came back because I realized something. Even if I left for good, no one would really care, not even him. Silence. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because the woman who detonated our marriage at a rooftop party just admitted she didn't even get what she wanted from the explosion. You're wrong, I said finally, gripping the edge of the counter. I cared. Until 5 hours ago, I cared so much it made me sick. But now, I looked at her, really looked at her. Now, I'm not so sure. She blinked. For the first time, she looked unsure of herself. And that's when my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number, one message. You deserve the truth. About Rowena. About last night. Meet me. I didn't answer the message right away. I just stared at the screen like the words might rearrange themselves into something less threatening. You deserve the truth. About Rowena. About last night. Meet me. My hands were still damp from gripping the countertop. My heartbeat didn't know whether to accelerate or stop altogether. I felt Rowena's eyes on me as I locked the screen and slid the phone into my back pocket. Who was that? She asked, sharp but trying to sound casual. Spam, I said flatly. She didn't believe me. I could tell by the way her lips pressed together like she was about to protest. But then she didn't. Instead, she stood up and walked out of the kitchen without another word, leaving behind a faint trail of perfume and tension that hung in the air like static. I waited until I heard the shower turn on upstairs before I took my phone out again. There was a location link, a nearby park just 2 miles from our house, the kind of place families held picnics on Sundays and joggers tried to outrun their problems. The message had been sent less than 10 minutes ago. Whoever it was, they were waiting now, and I didn't know why, but something in me needed to go. Maybe I wanted answers, maybe I wanted proof, or maybe I just didn't want to sit across from Rowena while pretending we still shared the same reality. I left without saying anything. No note, no explanation. She'd mastered that art first. It was gray outside, one of those mornings where the clouds hung low, like they were listening in on the conversations below. When I pulled into the parking lot, there were only 2 other cars. I scanned the area, expecting, I don't know, someone in a trench coat, someone mysterious and dramatic. But instead, I saw a woman sitting on the bench near the old oak tree, holding a thermos and staring out across the empty playground. She looked up when I approached. You must be Milton, she said, as if we were long overdue for this meeting. I hesitated. And you are? Let's just say I used to be close with someone you now sleep beside, she said with a faint, ironic smile. But not anymore. Not since what she did to me that stopped me cold. You're not talking about the guy from last night? She shook her head slowly. No, Milton. I'm talking about the other one. There was another one? Rowena, she said carefully, has been planning to leave you for months. But she wasn't planning to leave alone. My mouth went dry. So who was she planning to leave with? Her response was quiet, too quiet. My brother. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. My knees were weak, but I forced myself to stay upright, like collapsing in front of this stranger would give weight to something I wasn't ready to believe. Your brother? I asked, hearing my own voice shake even though I tried to sound indifferent. She nodded, eyes locked on mine, as if daring me to doubt her. My brother's name is Nolan, she said. He met Rowena at some community development conference months ago. She was speaking on a panel. He was part of the audio team. They hit it off. He told me about her, of course, not by name at first, just a married woman who was magnetic but miserable. I told him to run. He didn't. I rubbed my temples, trying to silence the ringing building in my head. But she never mentioned him. Not once. She wouldn't, the woman said. Because Nolan wasn't just a fling. He was the backup plan. That word, backup, hit like a brick to the chest. I wasn't even her escape. I was the cage she wanted out of. I was the dull, aging husband she tolerated until something newer, shinier, and riskier came along. Except that plan apparently had fallen apart. Otherwise, she wouldn't be back in my kitchen pretending to mourn a marriage she'd already buried. The woman, I still didn't even know her name, reached into her coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to me with deliberate care, like it might explode if I touched it wrong. "Read it when you're alone," she said. "It's from Nolan. He asked me to give it to you if Rowena ever came crawling back." I took the paper. My fingers felt like they were moving on someone else's hand. "Why would he give me a letter?" She finally stood up. "Because you deserve to know why he disappeared." The word hung in the air. Disappeared? Nolan walked away from her 3 weeks ago. Cut all contact. Changed his number. She doesn't know it yet, but he figured her out just in time. He told me she was different, that she made him feel alive again. Her expression twisted into something bitter. And then one day, she told him she'd used him for practice. My breath caught. She told him he was never the one she'd leave for. Just the one she needed to remember how to leave. The woman began walking away before I could say another word. I stood there, letter in hand, heart in pieces, and for the first time, I realized something terrifying. Rowena hadn't lost control of anything. She'd planned everything. I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes staring at that folded piece of paper. It sat in the passenger seat like it had a pulse, like it was waiting for the exact second I let my guard down to crack me wide open. I should have gone home. I should have thrown it away. But of course I didn't. People like me, the quiet ones, the soft ones, we need answers, even when they ruin us. I unfolded the letter with shaky hands, expecting rage, maybe some half-baked apology, or worse, poetry. But Nolan wasn't poetic. He was sharp, honest, and what he wrote didn't just cut me. It rewrote everything I thought I knew about the last year of my life. Milton, if you're reading this, she's back. Which means she's lying. Again. I didn't know she was married until the second month. She said you were basically roommates, that you hadn't touched her in a year, that you'd given up, and I believed her because I wanted to. She made me feel important, like I mattered, but every time she left my place, she turned back into someone cold, calculated. She once told me, with a straight face, that she didn't believe in guilt. Guilt, she said, is for people who still play by the rules. I fell for her hard, and then I saw her phone. Not just our messages, but 3 other guys. One of them was a coworker, one was her old college ex, and one, I think he was a neighbor. That's when I knew. She doesn't want someone to love. She wants someone to destroy and walk away from, just to feel powerful again. I left. I blocked her. But you deserve to know she's not broken. She breaks people. Be careful what you let her say next. Nolan? I folded the letter back up, but the words stayed stuck in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive straight to the nearest bridge and throw my phone, my memories, and this nightmare of a year into the river. But instead, I turned the ignition and headed home. When I walked through the door, she was in the living room, sitting on the couch, hair damp, pretending to read. She looked up with a perfect little smile and said, I was starting to worry. I stared at her. The way she tucked her feet beneath her. The way she held the book upside down. And I realized she hadn't stopped playing the role for even 1 second, so I sat down across from her, and I lied. I went for a walk. Needed to clear my head. She nodded. I'm glad. We should talk, but not yet. Not until I saw what else she was hiding. Because the one thing Nolan didn't know was what I planned to do next. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there beside her, eyes open, listening to the rhythm of her breathing. It was calm, steady, like she hadn't detonated our life only hours earlier. I kept thinking about Nolan's letter, about how she turned guilt into an outdated concept, like it was something weak people clung to. I watched her in the dark and wondered how many versions of her existed, how many different faces she wore depending on who was watching. By morning, I had a plan. Not revenge, I'm not that guy. But clarity. I wanted her to see herself from the outside. I wanted her to hear the sound of her own cruelty echoing back at her, and maybe, if there was still a splinter of conscience buried deep in her, it would hurt. I told her we needed a reset, that I wanted to understand her side. I even suggested we go away for the weekend, just us, somewhere quiet. No pressure, I said, just a chance to talk without the noise. She ate it up like candy, said it was mature, said maybe we had hope after all. While she packed, I messaged the woman from the park. Her name, I now knew, was Adrienne. I asked if she still had the photos Nolan had taken, the ones he'd saved in case he needed proof that Rowena wasn't just playing him, but playing everyone. She responded within minutes and sent me a folder. There were screenshots of texts, yes, but also something worse, a voice memo, from Rowena to Nolan. She was laughing, again, saying, "He thinks he's the safe bet. I needed someone soft to land on before I could leap. I saved everything, transferred it to a flash drive, slid that drive into a padded envelope, and tucked it into my travel bag, right between my socks and charger cables. We drove out to a small rental cabin 3 hours from the city. Nothing fancy, just trees, silence, and time. She held my hand in the car like we were newlyweds again. She leaned on my shoulder as we listened to some playlist she'd made years ago, songs I once thought were ours. That night, I made tea and handed her the mug like always. She took it, smiling, unaware that her past was sitting 4 feet away, zipped inside my bag. "I'm proud of you," she said, "for not giving up on us." I looked at her, really looked at her, and whispered, "Yeah. I'm proud of me too, because I wasn't going to argue, I wasn't going to beg, I was going to let the truth speak for itself. And tomorrow morning, she would open a box that would do what my words never could." Morning came quietly. A soft breeze whispered through the pine trees. The sky was gray but not heavy. For the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel like it was sinking. I woke before her, boiled water for coffee, and placed the small box on the kitchen table. Not wrapped, not decorated, just there, waiting. Inside was the flash drive, along with a printed copy of Nolan's letter. I didn't add anything of my own. No angry notes, no dramatic statements. Just the truth, collected, documented, undeniable. She walked in wearing one of my old hoodies, yawning, hair messy in a way that used to make me smile. "Something smells good," she said. I nodded toward the table. "That's for you." She looked confused, then curious. Sat down, opened the box, and paused. I watched the color drain slowly from her face. Not all at once, but in stages. Like she was realizing moment by moment how exposed she really was. She didn't speak. She didn't look at me. She just stared at the letter. And then the flash drive. She finally started, but her voice caught in her throat. I shook my head gently. "You don't need to explain." She looked up then. Really looked. And for once, she didn't wear a mask. There was no manipulation in her eyes, no clever lines, just something small, quiet, maybe even regret. I grabbed my bag, took one last look at her, and said, "You're free now. And so am I." And with that, I walked out. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't feel broken. I felt weightless. It's been 6 weeks since that morning. I've moved into a new apartment. It's smaller, quieter, but it feels like mine. I still make coffee in the morning. I still overwater my plants. I even started running again. Badly, but it helps. I haven't heard from her. I don't need to. Sometimes healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about walking away from what was never real, and finally feeling whole. Thank you for following this story to the end. If you've ever had a moment where the truth set you free, share it in the comments. We'd love to hear how you found clarity or strength in the unexpected. You're watching Reddit Confessions. Don't forget to subscribe and tell us, what's the one moment in your life that changed everything?